Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. It was the month of Dhul Hijjah, in the second year after Hijrah. 2 months had passed since the great battle of Badr. But regardless of the amount of time that passed, the Mushrikeen just couldn't live down the defeat that they had suffered, and they had promised that they would take revenge on the Muslims for it. One of the people that took this promise of his very seriously was Hadrat Abu Sufyan radiyallahu anhu, as he had taken an oath that he would not go near his wives, nor would he oil his hair. In fact, he would not even let water touch his hair until he had taken revenge on the Muslims for those mushrikeen killed at Badr. Hadrat Abu Sufyan radiyallahu anhu was always one of the seniors of the Quraysh. But after the Battle of Badr, with the deaths of the big, vocal, oppressive mushrikeen like Abu Jahl and Umayyah ibn Khalaf and their ilk, that left a vacuum in Makkah. And that is how it came to be that the new face of the Quraysh became Hadrat Abu Sufyan radiyallahu anhu. Being in this position as the new senior of the Quraysh brought with it its own challenges. Because while the tribes in the Hijaz used to look up to the Quraysh before and consider them as the leaders and the ideal, as well as fearing their military might, but after they had lost so badly at Badr, the tribes started to question the opinion of the Quraysh. So in order to save face for the Quraysh and to show the tribes that they hadn't yet lost their might, the Mushrikeen knew that they had to do something. But while the Mushrikeen in Makkah were still busy thinking of what they can do, Hadrat Abu Sufyan radiyallahu anhu, being a mushrik still at the time, he raised a small army of 200 men, loaded up with a lot of food for the journey, and set out in the direction of Medina. When they arrived a short distance outside of Medina, they stopped and waited until nightfall before making a move. Under the cover of darkness, Hadrat Abu Sufyan radiyallahu anhu slipped into Medina, as he knew the layout well and he knew the type of people that lived there, since he used to have dealings with the Jews. The tribe of Banu Qaynuqa had just been crushed, so only 2 last major Jewish tribes remained, and that's who Hadrat Abu Sufyan radiyallahu anhu visited. He went to the tribe of Banu Nadir and knocked at the door of one of its chiefs, whose name was Huyay ibn Akhtab, a future father-in-law of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. But despite Hadrat Abu Sufyan radiyallahu anhu knocking, Huyay ibn Akhtab refused to open the door. Not because he didn't hear him, nor because he was such an outstanding law-abiding citizen, but for a much simpler reason: fear. He had seen the outcome of Banu Qaynuqa, and even though he didn't have a good thought in his heart for Muslims, he knew that if he were to assist the Quraysh now and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam were to find out, then they, as Banu Nadir, would end up dead the same way that Banu Qaynuqa had gone, and he didn't want to die just yet. So after receiving no reply there, Hadrat Abu Sufyan radiyallahu anhu went off to the house of the main chief of the tribe, whose name was Salam ibn Mishkam. Now Salam ibn Mishkam was a rich jeweler and a money lender, and he would often lend money to Makkah. He was, so to say, like a bank back in those days. So when his door was knocked on, he opened it and let Hadrat Abu Sufyan radiyallahu anhu in. He gave him food and wine and hosted him, but more than that, he gave Hadrat Abu Sufyan radiyallahu anhu all the information he wanted and needed on the Muslims. So before the night was up, Hadrat Abu Sufyan radiyallahu anhu slipped back out of Medina to where his troops were waiting, and he sent some men ahead on to Makkah with the information on the Muslims that he had gained from the Jew. He personally remained behind with a portion of the army, and using the information that he now had, he went to the outskirts of Medina to a place known as Al-Arid. This was where the Muslims had a date orchard, and dates was a major food source to everyone living in the Hijaz. So he and his men began setting fire to the trees, and in the process they came across an Ansari Sahabi and his worker that were tending to the orchard. So they killed them both and then immediately fled before they were caught, because he was satisfied now that his oath had been fulfilled. He had succeeded in harming the Muslims. But obviously, you can't start something like a fire and not have someone see you. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was informed of it, and immediately Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam personally gathered an army and set out to track them down. Hadrat Abu Lubaba ibn al-Mundhir radiyallahu anhu was put in charge of Medina once again, and the Muslim army wasted no time in picking up the trail left behind by Hadrat Abu Sufyan radiyallahu anhu and his men. Hazrat Abu Sufyan radiallahu anhu rightly guessed that the Muslims would pursue them. So he pushed these men at full speed. But they found that the food which they had brought with them from Makkah was weighing them down and slowing their progress. So they began dumping the bags of food in order to make their mounts ride faster so that they can escape. The food that they were carrying was a staple dish in the Hijaz. It was known as Saweeq, and this is where the battle got its name from. Saweeq is a crushed wheat or barley dish that would be mixed with either water or milk, sweetened with honey, and eaten in that way. The closest thing that we have today which resembles it is porridge. And sometimes people would add extra things in, like nuts, in today's time. The Sahaba radiallahu anhum tracked them all the way until they reached a place known as Qarqaratul Qudr. And here the mushrikeen had covered their tracks, so there was no way to follow them any further. So the Muslims returned to Medina, unable to intercept the mushrikeen, but they returned with all the bags of Saweeq which was abandoned by the mushrikeen, which would then go on to add to the food of the Islamic State. It was granted to the Sahaba radiallahu anhu by Allah so that the Muslims would not return home empty-handed. And in this manner, the Ghazwat Saweeq ended. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين.